morning. I thank the wonderful Shul, Shalom, and the Rav, the Charash Shlita, for giving me the opportunity to spend a few minutes with Choshev Olam. Start with a story. This story I just heard recently from my Rebbetzin, who heard a thing b'shem Melech Biderman, b'shem Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, that when Rav Shlomo Zalman was in the Cheder thing, Kita Daled, he had a Rabbi, and the Rabbi one day in class says that outside there was a post, and on the post outside there were two metal lions for some reason. It was a decoration. Well, the Rabbi says that if your kids are going to bring some instruments, flutes, harmonicas, and they'll sing a song, so when the lions are going to hear you sing, they're going to dance. That's a tradition in our school. Kids were very excited. The next morning they came with flutes and harmonicas. They started to play. They looked at the metal lions. They didn't move. They didn't do anything. So they went to the Rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, you told us that if we would bring flute, we'll bring instruments, we'll sing, we'll dance, that the lions will also sing and dance with us. What's that?" The Rabbi looked at him and says, "Did you hear carefully what I said? I says, when the lions are going to hear you, they're going to dance. Problem is, they're not going to hear you." Okay. So the idea is that he said the Rabbi wanted to teach them that when you hear something, you have to analyze, you have to understand what you're hearing and how do you digest it. We are here in the days of between Pesach, Shavuos, and there's a lot to really comprehend, to understand. Sometimes when we go through something which we are not really ready for, like someone once of my Talmidim in the States said, he says, "Rabbi, I don't understand, I come to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, I don't feel anything, it doesn't do anything for me, I don't feel it." I said, "Moshe Lamad over Doime, you know what it's like." He says, if let's say you're going one day downtown and somebody taps you over the shoulder and says, "Oh wow, it's so nice that I see you, I was looking for you, you know, your best friend actually is getting married right now, the ceremony is starting in 5 minutes down the street, and he was looking for you, you were out of town, you were out of the country." The guy is there, he just came on, he's not, he's in his blue jeans, he is unshaved, and didn't take a shower. What should he do? He's best to get married, he didn't know. So, what can he do? I mean, his best friend, so he goes and he's in the wedding, but he feels like a very strange feeling. Why? Because normally, before you go to a wedding, you expect it, you prepare, you write clothing, take a shower, you go there all ready mentally, physically to have the celebration. But if, let's say, you're going with, told the guy, you're going to Rosh Hashanah, did you prepare for it properly? You're going with your spiritual blue jeans. What do you expect to feel like? If you want to have a good Rosh Hashanah, you're going to have a good Yom Kippur, you have to prepare for it. Then you'll feel part of the party. Okay, so I'd like to use the little time that we have to delve a little bit into this very special period of time. Especially it's confusing because we have Pesach, then we have Sfiras Omer. Sfiras Omer is supposed to be a happy time. It's some of the Sforim write it's like a long Chol HaMoed between Pesach and Shavuos, and yet we are mourning, we're not shaving, we're not having chasanas. It's like a bit perplexing, so to speak. So let's start from the very beginning. Try to understand, to analyze and understand what our Rabbi Moshe Rabbeinu tells us in Teras Moshe and Teras HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you look into the beginning, Mamish Bereshis, the first few psukim, it said, Reshit bo Elokim es hashamayim v'sa'oretz, v'oretz es hashamayim, and it says, Vayem Elokim yehi oir, vayi oir, was light. The first condition of the world was darkness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, yehi vayi oir. Vayar Elokim es hashamayim ki toiv, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw it's good. Vayavdel Elokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu separated the oil and the choshech, and the choshech kol oil kol yom, the choshech kol oil. So the first thing on the first day of creation, what's the significant action that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took besides the fact of creation and creating the light? So Vayavdel Elokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu differentiated, put a distinction between oil and choshech. Why do you have to divide between oil and choshech? Isn't it obvious? So there is some emphasis here on the nekuda of Havdalah, of separation. Okay? We know that choshech is associated with negativity, and light is positive. In fact, when we say in the morning, sounds like a salad of ideas. Shalom, we're saying, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is not the major point that I want to make. But Rabbi Yaakov Emdin Zatzal asks the question, why does it say Yotzer Oir Boyer Choshech? Should say either Yotzer Oir Yotzer Choshech or Boyer Choshech. Why do you differentiate Yotzer and Boyer? He says an amazing thing. He says there's a difference between creation and between transformation or formation. Right. So he says that the light is not a new concept. Hashem didn't need to create conceptually the concept of light, because light exists. The whole spiritual world is full of light. Darkness, on the other hand, is something that doesn't exist in the spiritual world. There is no such a thing as darkness. Darkness is a lack of light. There is no lack of anything in the spiritual world. So by Boire, it says Yoitzer, Loshen Tzure, Loshen Atzayir. A painter doesn't create anything out of nothing. He takes the paint that exists, he takes the brush that exists, he takes the canvas that exists, and he manipulates the paint accordingly. But a creator creates something out of nothing. Oil is Shayach Bria by contrast to Yoitzer Oil, Boire Choshe. By Choshe is Bria. Okay, now, if we move on with creation, we'll see there is something HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Adam and Chava after putting him in Gan Eden, Mikol Eitz Hagon Ochol Teichel, eat from whatever, right? Umipri Eitz Asher B'Soich Hagon, but the middle, there's a tree that's, later on we find it's Eitz Adas Tov V'Ra. I don't want you to eat from it. By the way, I always ask my Talmidim, what's the first mitzvah in the Torah?
To the Jews?
No, for humanity. No, there's something before that.
No, don't eat from the tree.
That's Loisa says, said Mr. Sasei.
All the trees eat.
Mikol Eitz Hagon Ochel Teichel. That's a Jewish mother, so we say food. Ask my kid. First mitzvah Torah. The Radak says it's a mitzvah Seder Reise. It was for Adam to eat. And in fact, the Meshech Chochmah said something. The Meshech Chochmah says that why we call Chet Adam Arishon. He said Chet Chava Arishon. Chet Chava. He says because Adam told his wife that you're not allowed to eat from the tree, but he didn't tell her there's a mitzvah to eat from the other trees. Said the Meshech Chochmah, if you would have told her that, she would be so busy with the other things, she would never get to that Eitz Hadas. So there's the Meshech Chochmah. It's an amazing thing. I want to stick to the line. So we see what's Eitz Hadas. What's wrong? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say don't eat from Eitz Hadas? What's Eitz Hadas? Das is Loshen Chibur, connection. Ve'odom yoda es chavo ishtoi. After Odom and Chava were separated from being one body to two, ve'odom yoda, the ultimate chibur connection is knowledge. In Sefer Kabbalah, it's brought down that the Vov is called Ois Adas. It's called the letter of knowledge. Why? Because Vov is the Vov HaChibur. Vov always connects. Chibur and Das are connected. So that's Vov is Ois Adas. What's the pshat in Ois Adas? It's Mechaber. When the Rebbe Shalom told Adam and Chava, don't eat from the pre-Eitz Adas Toivora, that means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, look, I created Ra. I created Toiv. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create Ra? HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates evil. Why would he create something negative that he hates with a passion? Answer is because ultimately it's for the good of humanity, because in the world of truth a godly being cannot enjoy anything real pleasure unless it deserves it, and Mimele undeserved pleasure is not really meaningful. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this whole enterprise with all its difficulties and complexes is because to give us a chance to gain eternal bliss forever, deservedly. Okay, so but Hashem says Ra is Ra, Toiv is Toiv. The combination of both together is lethal. It's poshet, very, very dangerous. Please don't. Odom chose against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is why we are where we are. Okay, so now from that let's go to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why should we go from one end to another couple thousand years later? And so it's Poshet. Because be'emes, we have a double calendar in Klal Yisrael. We don't have one calendar. The one calendar starts from Aleph Tishrei, right? It's the way Aleph Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, and so on. But the Torah doesn't go according to this calendar. So I believe the Shloach HaKodesh says that the two Rosh Hashanahs, one is Rosh Hashanah for the year, and one is Rosh Hashanah for the months. Chodesh says Rosh Chodoshim. It's the head of the months, but it's not the head of the year. So again, I don't want to go into the depth of the discussion about in Chazal. There's one Tana that says that the Nisan Nivro Olam, one Tana the Tishrei Nivro Olam, and the Rishonim say that it's really the same way, except there's two beginnings. One is the physical creation, one is the spiritual creation. Physical creation was Tishrei, and the spiritual creation was on Nisan, because as the Sephona says that because Klal Yisrael went out of Mitzrayim, they started their spiritual journey on Nisan. That's the beginning of the world, spiritually speaking. That's when the world started to correct the Chet Adam Harishon. Chet Adam Harishon says, beginning of Adam ki yakriv. So Chazal say, Atem kruim Adam, ve'einu moisoilam kruim Adam. You Jews are called Adam, and the Goyim are not. So people think it's a derogatory statement against Goyim. Shloach HaKodesh says no, it's nothing to do with this. He says Atem Kruim Odom means that Chazal say that if it says Ho Odom, it includes Goyim. It says only Odom, it's only Jews. Why? Because Atem Kruim Odom, he says Odom and Chavo in Gan Eden really ruined the world for generations. Atem Kruim Odom, the job of correcting the world to bring it back to the matzav of Odom. Atem Kruim Odom. Goyim don't have the obligation to return the world to pre-sin. They only have an obligation not to ruin it further. But we have an obligation to be Oil HaGoyim, to Akir V'yedu Kol Yoshvei Sevel. That's our job. Atem Kruim Odom. So, Bimele is like this, that the hate of Odom and Chavo had to wait until later on, and with Matan Torah, Chazal say, Beferish, it's a Chazal say, She'omdu Yisrael al Sinai, and they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, Posko zu Amoso shel Nochosh. The contamination of the Nochosh ceased. The Zohar HaKodesh says he came back later on by the Chet HaEgel. But for 40 days, Klal Yisrael was in the same madrege of Adam Rishon, Adam and Chava. Okay, so Memele, you see a very interesting. There is a parallel calendar which people are not aware of. The 15th day of Nisan is Pesach. The 15th day of Tishrei is Sukkot. But also the 10th day of Nisan was Shabbos HaGadol, was the Nes. Klal Yisrael was Mr. Nefesh against the Avodah Zarah of the Egyptians. Because the Egyptians were going to kill him. They said they were going to slaughter your God. Right? Later on, Chet HaEgel, when Klal Yisrael needed Kapore, they got it on Yom Kippur, Lucha Shniyos. Solachti. Why? Because that was exactly 6 months apart from when they were Moshe Nefesh for Keneged Avodah Zarah. So here they did, because that there was Zeicha to have Kapore on the Chet of Avodah Zarah of the Egel. Everything is parallel. Tu B'Shvat, Tu B'Av. People don't realize that. It's as I'll say, B'Chofei Oder Nivra Olam or Chofei Elul. It's also parallel. What's the difference between Tu B'Av and Chofei Elul? 40 days. 40 days is time for Yetzirah. Arboim Yoim Kohen Yetziras Avlad. Always Arboim in the Torah has to do with creation. Okay, but again, this is a side note. The idea is that when we say Kiddush Shabbos Friday night, we say Shesh Yom Moshe Hashem Hashemayim V'Soretz, right? Say HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, which says in the first Luchas, why should you keep Shabbos? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. The second Luchos, it says because HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out of Mitzrayim. So 1 minute. So why you keep Shabbos? For this or for that? It's a little confusing. The answer is for both. In Kiddush we say, okay, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kshesh Shomim, and then we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim, right? So it's not a stira because it's two parts. One is the physical creation, and one is the spiritual creation, which continued actually from the Chet of Adam Rishon, and we, Klal Yisrael, started the journey back to Har Sinai, back to sanity with Kabbalah Sater. Okay, so now we will see also that there's something very interesting about the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Yom Tov of Shavuos doesn't have any mitzvah in it. You can bring any time. Only in the Beis HaMikdash. Shtei Alechem. Right? Shtei Alechem. Why Shtei Alechem? Why 2 breads? Why breads? Why do you bring onions? Yeah, you know, what's the Shtei Alechem? So the answer to that is because as Chazal say, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah after Svov says that Rabbi Yehuda said over there that if Klal Yisrael will bring Shtei Alechem, we'll have a bracha bepeiros ha'ilon. So Rashi asked, why peiros ha'ilon? Bread is not fruit of the tree. So what's the connection? He said it goes to Shittas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that the fruit of Eitz Hadas was bread, chitoyo. By the way, chet is spelled chestes, chito, chestes. The only difference is in the dormant letter hey or aleph. But the root of the word chet and chito is the same. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Adam to do tshuva, he says, B'zeh asapecho toichal lechem. Why lechem? Right? Okay. The answer is that the chet of Adam and Chava was that they ate from the pre Eitz Hadas. It was a wholesome fruit, which was bread. Later on, that tree was demoted to be a lowly grain. But before that, Chazal said it was a Eitz Govoya beGan Eden. Now, we all know that there are other shittas. Some people say it was an esrig, so it was a te'eno, right? But the Zohar HaKodesh says, V'kulu kshoit. All of the opinions are right. Sounds like a marriage counselor. You know, you're right, everybody's right? But no, it says, Reb Tzodek HaKohen B'Lublin says, how can it be all right? It's either this or... So he says, no, everybody agrees that the Etzem Zach was bread, chitoyo. The shaila is, just like the mon had different flavors, shaila is which flavor was strongest to the Nikro al Shmoy. Which the Reb Tzodek HaKohen. Makes sense with the kuluk shoit. It makes sense with a lot of things because we see that the tikkun of the lechem is essential. It says "Amoitzi lechem min oretz." There's so many. There's a lot of eyes. I don't want to go into that, but lechem is the tikkun oilam. If you really want a little bit of an inkling, is that the nochosh is called in Mishnah. It says "Nirgon mafrid aluf." The nochosh is a hater. He hates. He has a tremendous amount of hatred. And his job is mafrid aluf, to be mafrid from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to separate between people and between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. That's his goal in life. Nirgon mafrid aluf. Okay? So now, if Nirgon mafrid aluf, then that's the koyach of Afrodet. So Avo took a bite into that wholesome food, toivera, and they did a pirud. They broke it down. What is the tshuvas hamishkol? What's the counterforce? The counterforce is to do something which is exactly the opposite. What happened to the bread? It became a lonely grain, and it produces small kernels. What do we do to the poor kernels? We take them to the grinder, and we grind them and make it almost like the smallest particle possible before it becomes microscopic. Right? Kemach. And then what we do? We take it, we put it in a bowl, and we put water, and make it again into one big chunk. And then comes the woman who caused the trouble to begin with, and what does she do? She takes off challah. Tikkun oilom, tikkun achet. Bread is the symbol of problems in the world, and bread, that's why when it says always lechem in the Torah, it doesn't mean only bread. It's all the digestion system that we eat. A meal is called lechem. So I'll call ponim. It's really if we alt corp will see a fascinating thing. The whole thing of Pesach and Tzfiras Omer and Shavuos are all really one big mysterious set of events, but they all unite really around one central theme. Okay, so now we understand that the first thing HaKadosh Baruch Hu did was he was made Avdolah, and he told Adam and Chava not to mix together the Tov and Ra. There's a very important thing that we have to know that. I was say. When you say in America the word discrimination, what comes to mind?
The color of your skin.
Terrible, right? It's a very negative connotation. Discrimination. As Jews, we say, Punk verkehrt, v'napich. Discrimination is the most beautiful thing in the world. There's nothing better than discrimination. Beautiful. It's great. How do we know? Ato choinen le'odam das. Melamed le'enish bino. Chazal had a question where to put Ato choinen tono. Motzoi Shabbos. So they decided to put in the bracha of Ato choinen. Why? Because im ein das havdola minayin. If you have no seichel, what's up with sugar now? Sugar mixes up everything together. Good is bad, bad is good, night is bad. Right? What does a scientist do a whole day? He's a discriminator. A scientist is a discriminator between one microorganism to the other. The finer the discrimination is, the greater scientist is. Right? The ability to discriminate is wonderful. I used to ask my students on campus, I said, I understand, 70, 80 years ago, we were very upset about the terrible tragedy that happened to us, and obviously rightfully so. But what was the so-called, if you can call it that, philosophy, the ideology of the Nazis in Shimon? They said that they are supreme, right? The supreme. The Aryan blood and whatever, right? All the Mashiach. But aren't we claiming also superiority? We claim superiority too. We're the chosen people. We're superior. So usually a student jumps up and he says, Rabbi, how can you compare? Sure, how can you compare? We don't kill innocent people. I said, good. So my friend, what he's saying basically is that there are two types of Nazis. nice ones and cowards. And the other one are brave and cool. But the ideology is the same. Do you feel comfortable going to sleep at night like a Jew? That your share philosophies with the Nazis in Shimon? They were going crazy, they didn't know what to answer. So I told them, my dear friends, discrimination is a beautiful thing. But there's two basic rules in order not to make it bigoted discrimination. There's bigoted discrimination, unbigoted discrimination. How can you tell the difference? Two simple rules. One is truth, and the other one is relevance. Okay? Truth. Let's say, take the Nazis. Take a healthy Nazi in 1940 in Midtown Berlin, and extract a pint of blood, send it to the local lab. See, is it true that Aryan blood is better? That's a joke. Of course not. But let's assume for a moment they found certain ingredients, Sug Aleph, Sug Bet, whatever. So, what is it relevant to the claim? Therefore, I have a right to kill those who don't have it. Ma kesher? It's completely insane. Klal Yisrael, we claim superiority. Why? Because we have longer noses? Because we have certain color eyes? We claim superiority for entering the spiritual Olympics called the Torah. Any blue, green, red non-Jew who wants to come and join us, kol hakavod. You have to keep the rules, you have to stick to the rules, you have to accept the rules. But it's not a matter of illogical, it's a logical thing. You want to argue? Come to any rabbi who is worth his title and see why we know, we're convinced that we are right. So it's not a matter of superiority because of certain physical attributes. It's something that has to do with the willingness to live on a higher level in this world, to be an Odom. Odom, in the Madregas of Odom and Chava, that's at least what we strive for. Okay, so I want to share with you a machshava that could be very helpful to all of us, what we're going through also nowadays. We celebrate Pesach. Pesach is a Yom Tov of discrimination. That's literally the meaning of the word Pesach. Posach al Botem Yisrael, he jumped over, he differentiated, discriminated between Jews and non-Jews. It's the holiday of discrimination. Don't see this, that's what it is really. That's Pesach. But we celebrate how many days of Pesach? 7. I want to ask you, all the 7 days was so nice and fine and dandy? In fact, the first day we were still slaves. Half a day was still midnight was slaves, right? At least. But you know what happened the rest of the days? So first day, we went to Adam Mitzrayim, right? We looked probably something like no one say in Gaza where the people have schlepped. They're going to a journey. There's a big Messiah class. They're going to Har Sinai. But then what happens? Kodesh Baruch Hu says to us, he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, go around, make shtik, go back, so the Mitzrayim should think that you are lost in the desert. Moshe Rabbeinu does it. And then, in middle of Yom Tov, it's Chol HaMoed, the Egyptians come. And Klal Yisrael is frightened to death. Amibli ein kvorim b'Mitzrayim. It's an amazing thing. Did we go and have a mangal or went on vacation on Erev Shvi Shel Pesach? Sure, we were very happy. But that day was a horrible day for Klal Yisrael. Terrible day. They didn't know what to do. Nevuchim Amidbor, so Amidbor, Chazal said, well, Arbakitos, whatever it was, but we didn't know what to do. We were in terrible shape. Now when it's over, we are celebrating those days too. When we say Hallel, Shalom, we say the whole Hallel. The first 2 parts of the part that we are missing in Hallel Shalom, are negative parts. Not taking out 1 chapter. We take 2 chapters, we chop them up. Lo ilonu Hashem, lo ilonu, negative. כמו יום iyun יסיים, כל אשר בוטח בוהם, right? אוהבתי כי איש בהשם בסקולי תחנונוי, it's negative. אף אפוני חב לאמובס, terrible. אני אמרתי בחובזי, כל האדם כל זה, if the chazan tzach, those are very, very harsh words. Only the second part, Mo'oshiv, is positive. Second part, Lo Ilonu, is positive. Hashem is Choronu, Yevorach is Beit Yisrael. But when we say Chotzi Hallel, when we say half a Hallel, we don't say the terrible parts. Why? Because it's exactly the opposite. Chazal said there's a mitzvah on Pesach, Poiseach Bignus, Umesayim Bishvach. I don't understand. Why wouldn't the party? Having a party. You say, Mitchilo Oivda V'Nizor Oyav Yisrael Mitzrayim. Can you imagine you write on a shidduch resume of yourself or your children? You know my Zayda, you know it was. He took a shtick holz and he said, good morning, you're my God. Yeah, put him in a mental institution. The Meshugana. Why mention it? You're celebrating Pesach. You're celebrating Pesach. Why ruin the party? The answer is that it's exactly the opposite. When we remember the negative, we accentuate the positive. The simcha is even greater. The simcha is greater. When we only mention the good things, okay, it's a very nice thing. It's still a bracha, chatzi halal, but it's not the same. Not the same. Al kol ponim, getting back to the inner of Pesach. The interesting, we have 10 makis. The 10 makis are really not the same. The first 9 makis are all makis, dam, tzfardei, akinim, all of them are makis that really broke the boundaries between the normal behavior of nature and got oroi, famished, board was ash and water and fire. Everything is like breaking the walls and mixing things up. There's one Makkah which was different, that's Makkah's Bechoros. Makkah's Bechoros was not mixing up anything, just literally taking the Reshoim, the Mitzrayim, the Bechorim, and killing them and not killing the Jews. And there was that's why it's called Pesach, because the distinction between Klal Yisrael and the Mitzrayim and Umo Yisraelim. Okay. It says, Leiv Chochom Liminoi, Leiv Ksil Lismoiloi. The heart of the wise is to his right. The heart of the fool is on his left. I don't know if there's any doctor who deals with autopsies here, but I don't think that if you take an autopsy on Albert Einstein, you'll find that his heart is to the right, and the local street cleaner who is not so intelligent, his heart is to the left. I don't think so. Something tells me. But, so what does Shlomo HaMelech mean? Shlomo HaMelech says an incredible thing. Shlomo HaMelech says, we are all made out of different parts, but we are one. Right and left are one. The shaila is, what do you emphasize? Leiv Chochom, somebody is smart, emphasizes all his good qualities and he's encouraged to go ahead and to do good things. Leiv Ksil, a fool, always looks, I'm not good, I'm not going to get there anywhere. So go on this, right? Leiv Chochom, Liminoi, V'leiv Ksil, Lismoiloi. The question, what do you focus on? What do you focus on in life? I always use emotional. What matters in your life? What really gets you excited? Imagine a guy became 45 years old. For his birthday, his best friend comes and gives us a big package. The door, this is for your birthday. Inside, he opens up one paper, another. He finds a big red lollipop, red on a stick, big one, giant one. And the guy says, "Oh my God! All my life, I was dreaming about a big red lollipop. Now I'm going to take a dance around the living room, and I'm going to take one lick, and then another lick, and then I put it under my pillow so I can save it for next year, Never the guy is straight. If it's a 5-year-old kid, no, it fits. But Meshuggah, that's what gets you excited. Big red lollipop. If I say something is wrong. So, I once had a case where I took a group of non-former students in Eretz Yisrael, living in the States then, and I brought them to the yeshiva, Ponevision, Beit at the time, and I wanted to show them what a yeshiva is. We were up in Ezras Noshim, the Bochum were learning Geschmack, 800 Bochum, and then they went to get the jackets and they learned a half an hour Musar. And in the middle I was talking, explaining, and then came Ma'ariv, started on Ma'ariv. Shema Yisrael, the windows were shaking. It was, wow. And then all of a sudden, after a few minutes, silence. And you go like this. One of the students looked at me and says, Rabbi, they are crazy. They are crazy. I said, why? He says, look how it is. First they scream in Musar, and then they and then all of a sudden silence, and they shake. Something's not. I told my friend, I never went to a baseball game in my life, but my kids did, and they tried to explain what baseball is. It went into one ear and went right here out. I don't know exactly what baseball is. I just know there's a big Zetzer guy with a big zlob, and he waits and he gives a Zetz, and if he hits the ball, and if it's a home run, I know what it is. They run home, I know. If it's a home run, you're talking about tens of thousands of people on the bleachers. I said, you went ever with your professor there? He said, sure. What did your professor do when they hit a home run? He said, he went like a Meshuggah. He went up there and he was screaming. I said, this guy, you probably, if you would not be Jewish, you wouldn't want your daughter to date him, this big zlob tzaddik over there that gives us Zetz. And he gave us Zetz! And he hit the ball! What? You know what those guys are doing? They're talking to God! They're talking to the Beit. They get excited! What's wrong with you? The guy was, wow, yeah, never thought of it. That's what happens when you don't think. You know? Yeah, that's what happens when you don't think. You have to think. So again, as we said before, the idea of Pesach, there's another whole aspect. I see the clock is ticking, so I'm just going to condense it. The Chet of Klal Yisrael was, it says in Sfarim HaKadoshim, the Chet of Bechiras Yosef was worse than all the other sins. The Medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgave Bnei Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, the selling of Yosef, and also the Chet HaEgel. However, he was on a probation, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a t'nai that if Klal Yisrael again has sinas chinam, sinas achim, then all the tzoros come back. Okay, that's what happened with the Asor Aruga Malchus. The 10 people were killed. Why? Chazal say because of the brothers of Yosef sold them. Why then? Why wasn't they died 10 Choshev Yid in the time of Yosef HaTzadik? Because it was on probation. And Asor Aruga Malchus was doing Churban Bayis Sheni. It was sinas chinam. This oirer, the probation. When Klal Yisrael is heute in Kfira, Chet HaEgel is Yisrael also, and we have a lot of tzoros, as we know, we don't have to elaborate. Okay. So again, the idea of sinas chinam is central here in Pesach, Sfiras Omer, and Shavuos. How so? Why is it that Talmidei Rabbi Akiva were nenash in such a harsh punishment? Okay, good. It's not a nice thing. It's a very, very bad thing. But Misa, yeah, somebody's not mechaved when you go to court and hang him up. Misa, the Chaim, Misa. Abraham Kotler says because they were going to be the leaders of the next generation, they didn't deserve Misa because Baruch took them away. It shouldn't be Chas v'Sholem. The leadership should be tainted with a terrible thing. When you build a building and it's not right, the Yesod is not right, it falls apart and so on. But there's another approach also, and that is that the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva were the Talmidim of the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, when I was on Amoretz, I wanted to take a Talmid Chochem and say, "V'anashchenu kachamor." I want to bite him like a donkey. That's what Rabbi Akiva says. When I was on Amoretz, 40 years old, he started learning Torah. Before that, he said, I hated rabbis with a passion. So the Talmud asked him, Rabbi, why do you say kachamoyer like a donkey, efshel like a dog? He says, no, I meant donkey. Because donkeys usually don't go to dentists. And the teeth are crooked. And when they bite, it's the most painful bite. Shoiver etzem, Chazal said, it breaks bones. Okay, so Rabbi Akiva is the one that once he became a Talmud Chacham, he saw it was so out of completely ridiculous. The Talmid Chachamim are great people and so on. And he said, "Ve'ohavta l'reach hakomoicha ze klal gadol b'Torah." Rabbi Akiva was meyased this klal that the entire Torah revolves around "Ve'ohavta l'reach hakomoicha," including shatnez. What does shatnez have to do with that? The answer is because Chazal say, "Re'ach ze HaKadosh Baruch Hu." Who is your best friend? It's not Hashem. If he told your best friend, who you live on his turf, told you not to shatnez and you do it, and then you're not religious. You're chayaroy. You're not a mensch. You betray your best friend. But again, that's the idea. So the hate of Talmid Rabbi Akiva was because they were not, according to the Rabbi, according to the shita of the Rabbi, they didn't do a sin. They uprooted all of Torah. That's a Ikar Torah. Memele Taki in their madrege they were chayav misa, not stam. So Memele, so the interesting thing that and there's so many things that I'm going to have to skip because of the time. Let's have a few more minutes. But it's a fascinating thing. It says, "Betzeis Yisrael miMitzrayim, Beis Yaakov me'am loyes." Right? So we spoke about why is it that Rabbi Akiva Dafke were punished during this time because Baruch couldn't punish them another time? Tisha B'Av time, place. The answer is no, because that's the point. Kol HaTorah Kulo, that's Sfiras Omer. By the way, what breaks Sfiras Omer as far as mourning? Lag B'Omer. Why Lag B'Omer? Yeah, but by the 33rd, I like the 29th day.
Oh.
Why did Hakadosh Baruch Hu choose Dafka that day?
But Pastor Bereshit, it's the Milim. On the 32nd day, the word, Lev, the word.
Oh, word. So the Shemesh Shmuel says, exactly what you're saying. Lev Shmuel says that 32 days they died, the 33rd day they stopped because the first set of days is Keminyan Lev. Lamed Beis is 32. From Lag B'Omer till Shavuos, how many days?
18.
17. Toiv. Lev. Toiv. The tachlis of Sfiras Omer is to get what includes Kol HaTorah Kulo, as the Pirkei Avos says, Royani es divrei Rabbi Elazar ben Aroch, right? Shebechlal dvorov divreichem. It goes, and Memele, they were the Lamed Gimel was a break where from that on starts the Toiv. The Lev was missing the Toiv. The Toiv, okay, I'll call upon him that the Indian of I just will conclude because again I left half my notes untold because I didn't realize how time flies. But the beautiful thing about Pesach is Tikkun HaChet of Mechiras Yosef. Why? Start before Betzeis Yisrael Mitzrayim. Doesn't say Betzeis Bnei Yisrael. Why? Because Yisrael means they were united again. Hayom ro vayonois. The sea saw and it ran away. Maro. Chazal asked, what did he see? Aroin Shel Yosef. Aroin Shel Yosef have to do with anything. Because Yosef HaTzadik was willing not to be buried for almost 170 years. It's halacha, you have to bury a person. And then the Shemesh Tsar, it says. But Yosef HaTzadik loved Jews, loved his brothers so much that he said, why? Can you imagine the Yam would have never split if it wouldn't see Aroin Shel Yosef? And the whole going to Har Sinai was to reach that madrege. So when Klal Yisrael was walking in Lag B'Omer, Omer is a bunch of loose shibolim. Later on, you make it into a mincha. But that's the whole idea. Why you count the Sfiras Oimer? Because you count, when Yosef HaTzadik dreamed about his brothers, he says, Basar me'almim alumim, ve'inei komo alumosi ve'gam nitzovo. The whole dream was about uniting, everyone Shevet to unite with himself, and then they all unite under Yosef. But that's what it really culminated. When Klal Yisrael were covered to Yosef HaTzadik, they took his bones to bury in Eretz Yisrael. That is why the sea split. Otherwise, it wouldn't have split. So the whole Mahalach from Pesach to Shavuos is a Mahalach of Tikkun Achet of the Mauritian Tikkun Achet of Avodah Zarah Mitzrayim, and it leads us to Shtei Alechem, Echad Keneged Chavo, Echad Keneged Odom. Shtei Alechem is a Tikkun Achet, right? There are two people involved, and in Mele, that's. So if I would like to conclude Lemaise, again, there's a lot more to say, but the Nekuda is, one of the most important Nekudas I want to convey is that, we're going through difficult times, and many people are upset, confused. People don't realize that when Mashiach will come in Mirz Hashem, we'll celebrate the days that we're going through, and just like Klal Yisrael celebrated the days of Chol HaMoed Pesach, they were so confused and so homeless. But we are celebrating it because it was the way to the Geula. So when we'll find out, Tish B'Yitaretz Kush B'Yavai will explain us why we had to go through all this pain. But we have to have a Emunah Pshuto that everything, Akoy L'Toivo, Gamzu L'Toivo, as Rav Nachum Gamzu used to say, and in Mirz Hashem, B'Rvois HaYomim, when the Geula will come, we'll say, Oh, Zimol Yishchak Oyinu Kecholmim. It'll be much like dreamers. We'll pinch ourselves. Really? Yeah. The Korev Mamish, Be'er Hashem. Shkoyach.